Austin, you do appeal. Your foundation, would you say, is based on rights?
Am I unmuted? Okay, yes.
Yeah. Rights?
Yes.
Okay. And so from your view, is it fair to ask what these rights are?
Oh, of course it is.
Okay, so what are rights from your view here? All right, would you agree that a right, would you agree with the definition that a right is an entitlement absent a duty?
Yes. That's a pretty close to the technical definition of what a right is. A right, like the simplest way to explain it is that as a right is a guarantee.
Okay, so if a right is an entitlement absent a duty, from your view, when you say, well, I have a concept of degenerate, right? There's some degeneration of something. So there's a positive thing that's unraveling. Let's call it a fabric, right? So let's say from all of our views, there's a fabric. And when we see that fabric unraveling, we call it degenerate. We call it degeneration, right? That's a clearer visual way to say it. So my question is, if a right is an entitlement absent duty, where do you get the duty to defend rights from?
Where do you get the duty to defend these rights from?
Yeah.
So could you rephrase your question in a different way?
Why
make it more low IQ.
Okay,
make it more low IQ.
Hold on, Jay.
Yes, because it's low IQ to want to understand and make sure you understand.
It's okay. Hold on. Why basically if the thing you're defending is the rights, which is an entitlement absent a duty, it entails that a duty's somewhere in there, right? Entangled. And I'm asking, like, what's from your view, from a libertarian view, what actually grounds that we ought to defend rights if they are in fact just entitlements absent the duty by definition?
Well, not everybody has to defend rights. Very few people actually do, right? It's usually a very small group of people that end up defending rights overall. So, I mean, are you asking why every person should have to defend rights, or
let's say acknowledge them?
I don't know if you're asking a tactical question here.
How about
it's a philosophical question?
How about acknowledge instead of defend?
Well, a duty to acknowledge that they have. I mean, it depends, right? Like, not everybody has a capacity to do that, right? That's why the rights exist to an extent to protect the liberty of people who don't even necessarily have the capacity to acknowledge it, like children, for example, right? Or the mentally deficient, right? The mentally insane, right? Those people have rights, even if they don't, can't acknowledge that they have those rights. They still, just like the unborn in the womb, they can't acknowledge that they have rights, but they do have rights. They can't acknowledge they have a duty to protect those rights. So we do that on their behalf through a constitutional government.
Okay, so if someone who doesn't have the capacity to know that they have these concept of rights, and they don't have the capability of acting out the duty, right? That's not embedded in the rights, by the way. The duty is added. I'm asking if granting someone rights that they can't actually act on, in a way you can violate their rights because they don't have the capacity to act on them, right?
Happens every day, but you shouldn't, obviously. I mean, I think abortion is a crime, and a crime against the rights of an individual. That person can't speak out on behalf of their own rights, so you have a person who speaks out for them as an intermediary. But I mean, most people do not acknowledge or have a respect for one rights, or second, a duty to those rights.
I got you here. Jay, let me finish this one last thing. So my question is, if Jay and I agree that someone who's walking around the street sort of not fully naked, but almost, and it's, from your view, it's their liberty. They didn't steal anything. They didn't violate anyone else's rights, and they didn't take, anybody's stuff or whatever. From our view, we have a duty to actually violate their autonomy, right? And from our perspective, take care of them in a sense. Now, taking care of such a person is actually a violation of their rights from your view. And that's why I ask this is why I fundamentally reject libertarianism, having gone through a phase of it, is that if rights are just privilege is absent duty, you still have to ground the duty part. And that's why Jay's asking about the ethics, because the ought claim that we ought to acknowledge rights is separate from the rights itself, right? So from my view, it all comes down to duties. And the problem with libertarianism is if you value liberty above all things, liberty is a description of what is, right? It doesn't tell us what we ought to do with liberty. It doesn't tell us when we should violate liberty or when we shouldn't violate liberty. It just gives you a baseline.
But that's kind of the beauty of it, right? I mean, isn't that sort of the beauty of it?
Does San Francisco look beautiful?
Hold on.
Does San Francisco look beautiful?
Well, you're not using San Francisco as an example of libertarianism, right?
No, liberty, just liberty.
Because like San Francisco is like the worst example.
How about Burning Man? How about Burning Man?
Well, Burning Man
that's
actually
better, right?
Much better, much more better than San Francisco. At least they clean up after themselves, right? Right, but still, again, like you ask yourself. I guess what I'm trying to understand here is like, are you saying that people don't have rights?
No, yeah, I'm actually saying they don't have rights.
Hypothetical. Can I make?
All right. Well, I did not know. So I was not aware that you did not believe that people did.
I think they're a social construct that are left with two things: force, whatever the force is, and two, whatever the standard of ethics is that's being imposed. And we already all agree that rights, as you even say them, actually. Not everyone gets them because you can violate them to do certain things. You can stop people from doing certain things based on their situation. So the problem is it's the duties. I think my belief is that only duties exist. And if rights are privileges absent duties, you still need duties to exist. And from the libertarian principle, the only imperative is to seek freedom and to look at liberty or freedom as an end goal is to look at efficiency as the end goal. Well, efficiency is a description toward a goal, but it can't be the end goal, just like liberty can't be the end goal. It's actually a start point, if anything. And that's why ought claims, like Jay's pointing to, the ethics, the meta ethics, which I didn't really want to get into. It bores the shit out of everyone except for me and maybe Jay and maybe Chad. He has a pipe, so it probably doesn't bore Chad. But it is important because if you organize a society around libertarianism, you're actually entailing that there is a meta-ethical principle that you ought to follow. And when you say something is degenerate, you're actually assuming there's a positive in which being torn apart, and we just don't know what that positive is, that fabric that's being torn apart.
Okay, I don't know that necessarily, other than the idea that we don't have rights, I'm not sure that what you and I are saying is necessarily in conflict. Some of what you're saying there is a utilitarian claim, right? You're stating that if a society existed around these fundamental ideals, so it does beg the question of, whether or not that society, if it were to come into creation, would be able to fundamentally create moral goods that then could potentially be degenerated, if degeneracy were introduced into that system, right? What would that degeneracy be? And how would that system be degraded through that degeneracy or that moral decline? So it seems that, it doesn't sound like I'm disagreeing with much of what you're saying, other than this concept that individuals, don't have rights.
No, this is where we disagree, is that when you go after Jay about like the butt stuff, is that the culture that we're seeing right in the West and other developed nations is that there is a clear, deliberate pushing of certain behaviors. In this case, sexual. They're not just sexual. There's drug behaviors being pushed. There's a lot of behaviors, but that specific thing is actually directed pretty much directly, explicitly toward children. And so what we're saying is that if
your politics, the San Francisco metaphor, I mean, like when I confronted you on the San Francisco example, I mean, like, you don't believe San Francisco is an example of a libertarian city, right?
No, I didn't use libertarian, but it's liberty based. It's liberty. It's based on the concept that liberty above
that's
all.
Because there's no self-evident definition of what liberty actually is, or what your position actually is. You yourself said it was subjective, and that's why I asked you, why do you think that fallacies are able to be done in a debate? Do you not think that a debate is governed by the rules of logic and critical thinking?
Well, I never said that the definition of liberty was necessarily subjective. So talking about strawmans, I never said.
When we asked you what it was, you said
no. You asked me for where my moral standards came from. You didn't ask me what my objective definition. You don't think liberty
is that not a value judgment?
It is a value judgment, but I never said it was subjective. So you can disagree with me, but please don't put words.
Those things are subjective. I asked you about value judgments.
Are you asking about my value judgments now?
I asked you then, and I'm asking you now.
Okay. So what about value judgments are you asking me specifically?
Where do you get the standard? Because if you're going to say there's oughts, you got to have a basis for the standard.
Okay.
Not just saying there's one.
Is it okay? Is it okay? Do I have to have one standard like you do? Or am I allowed to use multiple?
No. You don't even understand what it doesn't even understand what it means to ask.
I'm not like you guys. I don't agree. I am not a social conservative. Okay, so I do not conform to an inherently monotheistic view of society that bases all value judgments on one single standard handed down to me from on high. I don't have.
Hey, Austin, are you a?
I don't have.
Are you a post?
Don't even understand.
Are you a postmodernist, Austin?
He doesn't know what
judgment. No, I'm not a postmodernist. No, I do not agree with the wokies that there is no such thing as objective truth.
Okay, so what's the basis?
What distinguishes?
But I don't believe in one truth handed to us down from on high.
No, you do. You do. You do. Hold on.
No,
Austin, you do.
I believe in an amalgam. I believe in what's called triangulation.
What's the one thing? Hold on, Austin. You said something false. You got to be corrected. Well, there is one truth. There is one truth that you rested on.
I do not believe in one metaphysical.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Handed down to us.
Yes, you do.
You understand that that's a single.
I think that the only way to
that's your single principle, dummy. That's the single principle.
The only. Listen, Jay, I don't call you like a basement dwelling retard that looks like you smell bad and you haven't taken a shower in a month. So if you could keep the personal insult,
I mean, if you're going to change,
if you want to have a philosophical, before you criticize others,
if you're going to troll me,
maybe you should take a shower, retard.
Austin,
I could smell you from here and how you look. So
Austin,
did you copy paste your notes?
There's the concept. There's the concept.
So his ethical standard is copy and paste
determining what is more. Listen, you fucking retard. I'm speaking. Okay. There is a concept to find out what is true called triangulation. And what you do is
you don't even understand.
You have a gap. Let me tell you guys how logic.
He doesn't even understand that it's one.
Let him go. Jay, let him go. Jay, let him go.
Let me explain to you how you find logic. You go out and you find information. There's an information gathering part. You don't start with a conclusion.
That's not what logic even is.
You don't start with
what's the
truth.
And
now we find
Jay, hold on. Jay, hold on a second. Let me just manage this. Austin, you said you don't stand on a single truth, right? A monolithic truth for your values. And then you said
I do not believe that truth is handed down to us from high as a revelation. I do not believe in a revealed. I do not believe in a revealed truth. No, I do.
Okay, hold on. How? And then you said you triangulate to see what's logical and true outside. And I'm asking you from both of those standards, right? From both of those statements that you don't get any revelation of what's true. You triangulate and you use rationality and reason, right? I'm asking you, well, it seems as though your foundation is actually rested on one solid brick that you assume before you can look out in the world and find it, and it's called a human right.
Well, that's only one example amongst many. See, the thing is that if these concepts, they work together just like the construction of a building, right? You have to have one pillar and then the next, and then you have to build it all on the foundation, okay? And so in order for us to determine, in my view, in order to us determine what is true, we have to go out. We don't know what is true and then go out and find facts to support it.
Where did you find rights?
We find facts, and then we put them together.
Great. Where did you find rights? Where'd you find rights, though, then? If your standard for epistemology and what's true is looking out and doing triangulation and reasoning, I'm asking you, how did you come to the conclusion using that method that rights exist?
Well, here's the thing. I'm willing to change my mind if I'm wrong. But I drew this conclusion based on a litany of literature that was convincing enough to me, and I would present to you, and hope that you would be
whole
convinced.
litany, a whole litany of literature,
a whole body
Not
of
why
literature
you're a cat lady, a whole
that
litany?
I find to
a
be
whole
convincing.
litany or a little.
All right.
So wait, literature. What if we say, well, that's what revelation is to us? So you still have a problem in your method, because you said your method is you don't start from your conclusion and you go out and find things. So let's say you found literature, right? I'm asking you, what method did you determine to say that rights exist? I'm not sure how you would possibly come to the conclusion by looking to the external world that something like rights exist.
I wrestle with that. Listen, Jim Bob, I wrestle with that, right? I wrestle with that just like I wrestle with a lot of concepts. And, I absolutely could be wrong. And, you could convince me that what I have divined from my education and my knowledge and limited experience could be incorrect. But I can only show you what I have read in regards to the natural law, in regards to, the treatises of government, John Locke, right? Life, liberty, and property. I can only point to those, right?
John
because
Locke.
me being a secondhand purveyor of ideas, I can only show you those and say, this is what I believe to be true based on how closely it corresponds to what I believe to be reality, and I ask you to believe it as well.
Sure.
Based on whether or not you can. But I could be wrong. I'm willing to admit that.
What I observe in reality is force wins, both in the animal kingdom and the human. And so for me,
what do you mean?
This is the descriptive truth about reality in all animals and humans is that force wins. Do you disagree?
I mean, like, you just mean in general, like 100% of the time, or you just like in general?
There's always force ready to go, either looming or there's always force being used.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. And I mean, like, so I wrestle with that, and I'll tell you, I think that it's difficult to live in a society where we can balance to create a society where there is a balance against those laws of nature. Right. So, like, just to create a civilization, if we will, is to sort of reject the fundamental root.
You mean appeal to something supernatural, right?
What do you mean?
You have to reject the brute nature, right? For us to have dignity as human beings, right? To ground the value of us being human beings, which is not identical to your dog, is something not found in nature. So we don't find these things, rights assume dignity, right? But it also assumes some sort of duty. And so if we both agree the descriptive truth in premise one for the world is that force wins and force is always in action, or it's looming at least, right? It's always looming. And so if that's the case, then would you agree that it actually wouldn't be a right that informs our behavior, but rather a duty that would actually give us how we ought? Right. Okay. Sure. So if the truth of the matter is force wins and that's the way of the land for animals and humans, that there's something that intervenes that isn't necessarily an entitlement. And would you say if that entitlement even existed, which I don't believe it does, you would still have to point to the duty in which informs us how we should interact with each other?
Not necessarily. I mean, you're partially right. I mean, I do think that, like, force wins in nature outside of what man has created. But cops, courts, nuclear weapons, right? The instrumentation of the state, right? So since I'm not an anarchist and I do believe in a limited government, then that means that I do believe in an artificial third party interceding in order to ensure that force doesn't always win. And I think the truth is that it doesn't, right? The fact
hold on.
Hey, wait, I'm almost done. The fact that grandma, can safely go and get groceries here in mid-Missouri without having to worry about bands of highwaymen or thieves.
Because of force.
Yes, because of force, but that's introduced in a way to ensure that force doesn't always win.
The threat of force does.
The threat of force always wins.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to appeal to rights, all you're appealing to is an agreement that you have an entitlement that ought not be violated, and if it is, there's a consequence that is force, right? And so force wins is still descriptively true even in your system of rights. Now, what we're pointing to is that's actually not good enough for a society that has any sort of fundamental principles or good, a sense of a good, and these things, that you actually need to confront the problem that entitlements themselves actually just leads you down a path like we're seeing today, where now you have modifiers for entitlements. You have the gay entitlement, you have this entitlement, the black entitlement, the whatever, and you just keep adding entitlements. Now, notice how no entitlement that's ever given is ever paired with the duty. What grounds this duty that we ought to value or acknowledge entitlements at all? And from your view, you can't ground it in the natural world. It's nowhere found. And so the thing that actually makes us intervene as human beings is the assumption that we're actually not just animals. We're not just a part of nature, that something is in us that's bigger than that, and it necessarily needs to be supernatural, because you can't find these things in nature. And so we're asking you.
I can be convinced. I could be convinced of that. And certainly I'd love to see your evidence for it. And I'm willing
evidence
to
for supernatural. Well, what's the evidence of a right?
I would love to see. I would love to see. Listen, I'm not. Well, hey, listen. I'm not the one making claims. I'm not making.
You are.
I'm not making extraordinary claims.
You did. Right. A right is a supernatural.
No. Hey, everything that I say I can point to. And
where's a right?
And verify.
Where's a right? Where's a right?
So low tier.
But listen, you're the one making extraordinary claims.
Rights exist.
Claims require extraordinary. You're saying there
rights
is
exist.
Supernatural.
No.
You're working on that premise.
Our position is actually coherent because it actually makes sense that there
rights exist. Rights exist is supernatural.
He's not going to answer me.
He's going to talk over me. Do you believe that you could be wrong about your worldview? Are you willing to admit that your metaphysical claims could potentially be wrong?
No, because metaphysics needs to be because here's why, Austin. Hold on. First of all, hold on a second. Let's just go one thing at a time. Austin, you said extraordinary claims require evidence. I simply asked you. I'm telling you that a right is an extraordinary claim, and I'm asking you where the evidence. I'm telling you, Austin, as an olive branch, you already believe in the supernatural. A right is metanatural.
God, that's crazy.
Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
Guys,
you're cringe. Because you don't answer that.
Someone who's telling you that like a basis of rights that's built up on a foundation of scholarly evidence.
What's your basis?
It's not the same thing.
What is your basis?
As claiming revealed truth. Right? It's not the same thing.
He literally can't answer it.
Where's the right?
We're not even speaking. We're talking past each other.
Are there evidence for rights?
Your claims are based on the supernatural, and mine are not.
Where's a right?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that it's grounded. That's the point.
Where's the right though? It's supernatural. It's not found in nature.
Well, where is your thought? Do you have thoughts? Are they in your brain?
They're metaphysical.
Thoughts?
No.
If I were to open up your brain, could I show you a thought?
Great.
You have thoughts.
Great. Right? We both agree.
This is good. Okay, good. To prove that there's a thought.
Yeah. We good. Good. We reject materialism. Do we both not reject materialism now? Right?
No, I do not reject materialism.
Okay. So where's a right? So where's a right then?
So you're saying concept.
Which molecules make up a right?
Yeah, tell us where right is.
Well, listen, you'll have to talk to a brain chemist to explain to you what the electrical symbol.
No chemistry can tell you where a right is.
Okay, all right. Well, listen.
You
make
have an actual
supernatural
or not?
I simply deny them and say I don't see that that's the case. I'm willing to believe it.
How about take another example? How about take another example that you appeal to? Are the laws of logic real? Do you believe they exist?
The laws of logic. Do I believe that they exist? Yes.
Yeah.
Where?
Okay. So where do they exist?
Make up the laws of logic?
Right.